All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, it's time for our conversation right now. Valentine Ozigbo, the immediate past president and GCEO at Transcorp Plc, is joining me right now. Welcome to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
How are you doing?
Doing great, as you can see.
Give me your own perspectives of what you think has been happening in the last few days, about 2 weeks or so. Now, at least this #EndSARS protest.
I think what we've seen here is a manifestation of failure of leadership. And this has been happening for many years, and is gotten to where the youth, they've decided to take full responsibility for their destiny. They decided to show aggravation and, of course, protest, especially focusing on police brutality, especially on the segment of the police, SARS, which has brought a lot of disrepute to the Nigerian police. And I must say that I am proud of what the youth started to do at the initial time. As a matter of fact, I was part of the protest. I was there at the Lekki toll gate.
And you protested with the
Yes, I was there.
Because you are not a youth.
I am a youth. I am a youth. Are you a youth, Nancy?
I am not, because I don't fall within the ages anymore.
Actually, youth is not just about the numbers. By the time you also get to know a bit of what I've done for the youth, and which is why I'm called the king of the youth.
Are you saying perhaps you're youth at heart? Because what we've also found out in Nigeria is that according to the UN and according to the definition, perhaps from 15 to 35 is the age that you can say, okay, these are young people. But like a 45-year-old person or a 50 should not say that he or she is a youth. I understand we can associate with them. I'm a youth at heart, but in terms of like the number, I think I'm more than the bracket of 15 to 29 or 15 to 35.
So let me just say youth by substance. Okay.
Okay.
So that's better. Okay. So we can make progress. so basically, I'm quite happy to see that we suddenly have woken up to be able to get our voice out there and show that when things are going awry and wrong, we can speak out. But of course, there's a lot of other things we've had to learn from all of this. Obviously, some wrong segment of the youth also infiltrated into this and created a lot of havoc, which is why we also need to make sure that whenever a protest is being planned, there must be a proper strategy to, be proactive and foreclose this type of possibility. Obviously, some of us had the fears that this may go out of hand, because when this started enlarging, of course, we started to see the build-up, and over time, it was inevitable for some bad segment. And of course, unfortunately, the initial reaction from the leadership wasn't so fantastic, and that even aggravated the situation. And for me, I also want to again emphasize on the importance of peace in any economy, in any society. And I am happy to see there's been relative calm, but I still hear about stories of vandalization and theft in different parts of Nigeria, which is unfortunate. We have to go beyond this. Of course, we're here to also talk about the cost of all of this, but the fact is there's a lot we are losing as a country. There's a lot we're losing in terms of our reputation. There's a lot we're losing even among the way we perceive and the way the youths ought to actually take full responsibility for the action. There has to be maturity so that every other person can say that these youngsters know exactly where they're headed. Is this how we are going to take care of our future? This is the question people are beginning to ask. And for me, generally, there's a lot we need to learn. It's time for us to have introspection and speak truth to reality. And there's a lot we're even yet to learn that I'm hoping that we're also going to cover in this program.
I'm interested in knowing where, you said you were at the Lekki toll gate at the time. What period were you there? And describe to me what the protest was like at that time you were there.
So I was
what
there.
The youths were doing, because from what I saw even on TV and from what was being posted, even I spoke to a few of them, I could see that they were very well organized in terms of even raising funds, in terms of even charging their phones, in terms of even cleaning the street behind them, in terms of everything. That I was like telling myself, this is corporate governance that I'm seeing, but yet I can't see it in public. You know, yes.
To be honest,
and they were giving accounts of.
Precisely.
I was not even part of, but I knew who gave what.
To be honest, the ingenuity was incredible. The amorphousness of the protest was even something that I have not seen before. You couldn't even identify who the leader was. And yet it was so well organized. And the initial 5-point agenda was all spelled out, well thought through. And you could see how well, you know, in fact, I was shocked. By the time I left, I noticed on a Sunday, because I was there on a Friday. And then on Sunday, my parish priest, Musaina, was there to celebrate a Holy Mass at the toll gate. A Friday before, there was a Jumat prayer happening there. And you saw everything extremely well ordered, well organized. The cars were parked neatly aside, and then you come close. If you want to speak, you can mount the podium and speak and get everybody energized. And the food was being brought, everything for free. Of course, sponsored, and corporates were responding. And you see even adverts on LED, and it was all a masterpiece until all of this happened with the announcement of curfew, with the way, you know, the military reacted, and it aggravated the situation. Of course, there were criminals also waiting to lash onto this, and that's exactly what happened.
The organization was just something else, but of course, they've also been criticized that for such kind of protest or for such kind of movement, should it be just a leaderless body? Because like I've always asked on the program in the last few days, could the protest have been won alone on the streets? Precisely
not. As a matter of fact, a few of us actually were discussing this at the protest ground to say how I wish we could actually identify who to advise. Because I knew personally that there's nothing you won't achieve a lot on the protest ground. Everything always will end up at the negotiation table. The moment the government responded, and I must commend the speed of the response, even though I was expecting a lot more, especially from our leader. The speech should have come much earlier, and it should have been more impactful and more empathetic. But the reality is that there was an urgent, a responsive, you know, reaction, which led to, you know, government accepting the 5-point agenda. The meaning of that acceptance is what we needed to go into the negotiation table, so we can marshal out the exact timeline, responsibilities, and what will happen. And this is how I wanted things to progress. But unfortunately, who are you advising? Who actually are you going to speak to? I made out a lot of videos and tweets and all of that to, you know, share my thoughts around, you know, encouraging the youth, because I like the fact that in all that has happened, let's really go back. Have we actually done well as a country? Can we not have avoided all of this? Look at the way we have celebrated mediocrity, nepotism, and all of this. Look at how there's been less accountability. Look at how things have gone down the drain. And look at even where we're starting from. Before even COVID, look at where Nigeria was, unemployment and all of that, the subsidy issues, the electricity issues and all of that. And then COVID struck. And then we dealt with volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, all of that. And then this one again. All of these are, for me, manifestations of bad leadership. And with the youths now being resilient, youths, they've actually had to almost fend for themselves in this country. The things that are doing well today are things that are not of much support from government. You know, talk about entertainment, for instance, the music and all of that, where this is youth, conscious youth-dominated areas. And they've moved on. How much support does Nollywood and music star, how much support do they get? And when you see how resilient youths have been, we can't but commend them. And for them to speak up and speak out, I was only expecting that introspection to say, we are sorry, this is time, we need to retool. I have always wished that COVID can actually be that symbol, that turning point, when we can actually look inwards and see where we've gone wrong, because there are several things we need to learn. My biggest fear is in all of this, what changes really have we had to realize? Is there anything we're seeing in the governors, in the president, in the cabinet, in all of this, that can actually signal there's a positive change happening? Are we learning? Are we learning a lesson?
That's something that we should ask ourselves and also honestly answer. What lessons we're learning? And I like the fact that you said that when COVID struck, you thought that it could be a turning point. And a lot of us thought so too, because it didn't just strike our country. It struck, the whole world is still battling with it. But the funny thing also is in this country, some people in leadership don't even still believe there is COVID-19, let alone that should be a turning point for us. We've seen what has happened. Even during the COVID lockdowns, we saw a nosediving of oil price, even into the negative territory. Everybody went haywire. The uncertainty, what we're passing through right now is not even giving us a good picture. It's not giving us a good image outside. So you've talked about the government handling that. You thought that the government would have been more empathetic. You've also spoken about how you thought young people should react to it, in terms of you shouldn't just really have a leaderless. I don't know what they're strategizing now, but putting all of that in perspective, let's take a look at the cost so far that the last few days has really impacted. Here in Abuja, Port Traders said they lost about 200 million naira. We've seen government buildings, state assets being vandalized. Even up till yesterday, people were vandalizing. I said earlier, people finding out the warehouses of where COVID-19 palliatives are stored and looting them and saying, is their food? Is it really your food? Now you keep on there. Must you go there to take it? That's another question. Isn't it also stealing? But they say, now our food. They wanted to give it to us. So how do you put all of this into perspectives?
This is where I actually get very downcast because when I start to imagine the cost of all of this, it's not just the financial. There's a lot of mental, and there's also the sunk, and there's also the futuristic. And in fact, even within the futuristic, there's also those that we're yet to even imagine or account for. I was watching the speaker talk about Lagos, for instance, losing about 8 trillion. And I actually started to think about that number, and it may actually be about that 8 trillion. As you know, Lagos is more than half of Nigeria. GDP, I'm sure, is over almost about
Lagos 140. GDP is bigger than Kenya as a country.
$140 billion. And if you do the calculation, how much, therefore, could this GDP be? They assuming there's uniform generation of that GDP. You can easily come to about 380 something, almost $400 million on a daily basis. If you then begin to imagine how much businesses were impacted, the slowdown, the lockup, and all of that, and those have been destroyed, and the opportunity cost that we've lost, and you might put figure to about 40%, 30% for that 2 weeks window, and it's not even over yet. And by the time you do that appropriation, you may be getting to about 900 billion naira, which is about 8 trillion. And this is just about what has been lost already. It's not about the fact that some of these properties are not just government, some of them are private individuals. I know a lot of my friends who, because I live in Lekki there, who are badly affected by all of this. But even for the government money is our money. You're still going to see contractors that will replace those stuff with double, not just double the cost. And what are we doing? Why are we shooting ourselves in the foot? Why are we doing this to ourselves? For me, where's the wisdom? There is absolute lack of, in fact, it's idiocy. That's what I see. And I am hoping that, and I'm appealing to the youth to please bring reason to their senses, because there comes a time enough is enough. We need to make progress. We need to go back to what hurts us, what we need to bring as changes to bring the needed transformation and development that we seek. We need to get into taking full responsibility for our future. We need to start to think of how to get the recruitment process and leadership right. What do they need to do to make sure the very next election, their voices are being heard? Because as of today, everybody will respect the voices of the youth. But let that be properly channeled so that we can actually galvanize ourselves into greater good.
You know what? You just brought me to an angle, this leadership question, which you talked about. Do you think that this is a turning point for the political process or for the political system in Nigeria? Because I'm also aware we're talking about looting. I think about 2 or so senators have also complained that things were being carted away. Okada, that's motorbikes and all of that, and even the COVID palliatives found. I read in the newspaper that one of the senators said he wanted to use it for his birthday. So what came to my mind is that since you're talking about leadership question, how can this tune the minds of young people, not even young people, of Nigerians, to say, we sent you to the National Assembly, for example, for those category of people that were involved in this kind of things? What should we do to them? We voted them in. We can also recall them. Can we begin to also get that kind of constructive conversation around the political system? I see a bit of that on social media. People are saying, go prepare for 2023. In fact, people are already telling INEC, begin to, is it voters card or begin to give voters card? Don't wait till 2023. So how do you think that this will change the political process? Because Professor Mohalu told me on the show yesterday that, Nancy, the economy cannot really change if the political process is not also right.
Totally 100% correct. As a matter of fact, I am not just thinking that this could be the turning point for the political process. I am hoping and wishing and praying that it becomes, because we can't continue this way. On one hand, there's palpable fear in the minds of some of the politicians who are guilty of this. Some of them don't even drive government vehicles anymore. They're scared. They don't even go around with police escort. But I fear that our memories usually can be too short, that before you know it, we'll go back to normalcy. But if this can actually be sustained, strategically taken to a level where it will dovetail into our political process, where, number one, the youths are going to get their voters' cards. That's number one, very important. And by next year, there will be, first quarter of next year, there will be voter registration and all of an accreditation and affirmation. Let the youth take full charge of that process and make sure they arm themselves with that powerful voice, voter's card. And they also begin to define the type of criteria and qualification required of a great leader that we're seeking for across all, from federal to state to local government.
Can you do that without the change in constitution? What does our constitution?
That's also there's actually a electoral act waiting to precisely, and these are the pressure points. You can actually insist and let that electoral act revised be passed and assented to, and if that is done, it creates a level playing field. And in fact, we can actually move to electronic voting, where you don't have to even queue up. You can be with the comfort of your home, from comfort of your home, with your mobile device, you can cast your vote. And all of that can be championed right now. And guess what? As we do this, the government will listen. I believe so. So this can actually be the turning point. But what I also see is that there are certain people who may have future political ambition, that this has sealed a lip on it. And therefore, there's already a change that's happened. But it's not enough. I want to see a deeper, a more reflective change where all of this would dovetail into proper governance, where we're able to entrench competency. It's not just about youthful leadership. It's about competency across everything that we do. And I am hoping and I am praying that we get to that level.
I like what you said. It's not just about being young at heart or being a youth, that you're qualified for the job. It has to be competence. If you take a look at even the class of leadership we have, at least there was I think, was it last year or was it in 2015 or so, 2019, that an average of leaders were taken. We saw people within the range of, I think, 55, 60 to about 80 within, and they're still in power. If you take a look at those in leadership positions right now, they started even leading Nigeria when they were like late 20s, early 30s. Yes. The Gowons, even the Buharis, even the Babangidas, I guess the Obasanjos, and all of them. They were in their early 30s, mid 30s, and they're still within the conversation right now. So are they really free to give power?
That's why I love your definition of youth, because I guess some of them still claim to be youth.
No, they will not, because they should not. Because if you take a look at it, and I think that's also part of the deception.
Yes.
And part of the honesty we should tell ourselves,
Yes.
that this country is ours and we've got to fix it. Check out what is happening in Rwanda, for example. You have ministers of late 20s, early 30s, working with President Kagame. You may say, okay, he has his own faults and his own, but you see a lot of young people in his own cabinet.
There's actually a 19-year-old minister.
A minister.
And there's a young boy who just broke Guinness World Record, 12-year-old, one young boy from Anambra State in freestyle football, Echen also. There's this, you know the Pestac story, the $200 million.
I discussed it last week.
My dear Nancy, to be honest, we are moving to a fast-paced world. Nigeria is not in isolation. We are living in a very competitive global world. And the only thing we need to do is run faster because we're at the ground. We must run faster than the global, the bigger world, the first world. And that's the only way we can catch up. Because if you don't run faster, not as fast as them, faster, we won't be able to catch up. And this is where the world of technology, critical thinking, and all of these type of mindset will need to be developed. And when you begin to bring this to fore, you actually see that there are people who are totally ignorant of the conversation. They are not even, we're living in a social media world. If you honestly can't even understand what happens in this world, how do you want to lead that world? So you are not qualified by all means. And of course, we also see some elderly ones who are still in tune with what is going on. But the point here is about being trendy, being modern, and being competitive, leading us to a competitive world. And this is what I'm hoping, because not until we do this, especially in Nigeria, we can't begin to change the story of a black man in the world. We have to do something about it. And may this be that turning point. That's been my prayer and wish.
I hope so too, because the question also would be, if you drop a Nigerian in another clime that's seemingly working, that Nigerian excels.
Precisely.
They excel in Canada, they excel in America, they excel. In fact, Nigerians in America are one of the best, if not the best, black immigrants.
So the question is, what is the problem? And that problem, I can define it simply as, number one, failure of leadership. When we don't entrench competency in everything and anything that we do, the way we've succeeded in the private sector is exactly the same way they've succeeded abroad, even in Nigeria, when we succeed. And how do we succeed here? You are here. The people walking around here are here because they're competent. You don't bring somebody who is not qualified to do stuff. But that's not how we govern. Sometimes we actually choose a deputy governor who is weak so that it doesn't become a challenge, doesn't outshine you. This is the mentality that must change. And competency is number one. Number two, having that cohesive spirit, having the emotional intelligence, having the empathy, knowing that as a leader, you are actually a servant of the follower, not a big man who must be arrogant and very badly behaved, not even understanding what emotional intelligence is. And number three, we must imbibe a new culture, what I call a culture of continuous improvement, where whatever you see can actually be improved upon, including those things you do well. How much more things are going so badly? And when you bring this culture, you start to wonder, why do we even question retuning and looking at Nigerian structure, the constitutions, and we're talking about police brutality. What do we need to do that are fundamental? If that means, for instance, creating police, state police, we do that. But guess
what?
Why
are we shying away from that?
What is the problem? When something is not working, and you know how we used to say it, the way my forefathers did it, the way, and so shall it be. What would that end? What the hell are you talking about? We've got to bring the right change and right mentality. And this is why I am actually very glad that our youth are waking up. But let them wake up and do the right things, and not do things that will demean them, that will actually make people to deafen that voice that we should be hearing.
Let's talk about the police a bit, because earlier on during my intro, I also talked about we're seeing hoodlums still going around, destroying people's property, destroying people's sweat. And I want to tell them now, if you're watching me and you've gone to destroy someone's mall or shop, have it in mind that it's like you against us, as it were, because you are not doing that person any good. The person is also suffering like you are suffering. this is not an opportunity for you to go begin to destroy people's shop, cars, and all of that. Because at the end of the day, most of these properties are not even insured. The person has to start from the beginning. It's harder to rebuild.
Destruction must end. It is a whirlwind that does no good to anybody. As a matter of fact, I see ignorance, I see timidity, and I see stupidity. That's what I see with these destructions, including destroying police stations and killing police.
Over 17 police stations in Lagos?
It's very unfortunate. And if you come to my state, Anambra, a lot of them have been destroyed. I've seen the murder DPOs. They go, murder, set cars ablaze, set the person ablaze. And guess what? These were built by individuals, by communities, not even by government. And so you go and destroy. If you have an idea what this, for instance, $1 trillion loss can do to our lives, and we're just talking about Lagos, that could be just $1 trillion. When you bring all the other parts of Nigeria, if you know what this, how this has set us back, we will bring sense into what we're doing. I am actually joining you to appeal to the youth. Enough is enough. Let's get more strategic. Let's get more meaningful and in what we do. Impactful, positive impact. That's what we should be thinking about. How do we bring the change we're looking for and be that change
that we want to see? That's my slogan at the end of the show. Talking about the police, it seems, even though the IGP has said, come on guys, go back, but we're seemingly not seeing police presence, and we are seeing everything we're seeing right now. The police on one hand could also be saying, like I said earlier, Shebi now tell us say una no want us. Okay, we did. There are not even police stations in some parts of the country right now for them to go to. The police stations were even dilapidated. I can't remember when last I went to a police station that I saw like a computer system on the desk of a police officer. When you go there, they'll bring out paper for you. Like they'll even be looking for paper. Oh yeah, write your statements.
Yes.
That's the police of today. So our police too, we must also credit them that they've been doing well vis-a-vis the resources they have. But Nigerians are also saying that you went beyond board in terms of extrajudicial killings, alleged rape, alleged murder, and all of that. How should we handle all of that? Bearing in mind also that funding, it's on the surface of all this.
The answer is actually very simple, and we've spoken about it here already. You see, we should stop dealing with symptoms and go to the root cause. The root cause is looking at the Nigeria structure. Security is so imperative. I have run businesses from banking to sports to entertainment to power to oil and gas, and I know the importance of security, especially in business. I know that once any place is seen as insecure, forget it. Even Nigerians won't come in. How much more foreign investors? And with this in mind, let's actually sit together and ask ourselves, what is wrong here? Why is the police so poorly funded? What can be done to ameliorate all of this? And you go back to a simple solution: devolve all of this. Police can go to, federal for some that are federal, state for some that are state, and local. And in fact, in some cases, you actually have them in other buildings. It could be within the court premises, just unique to them, so that we begin to fund this across these levels. You begin to see, oh, Anambra police is better than Akwa Ibom police.
And they compete among themselves.
They compete among themselves. Competition.
Yeah.
And
the police in my village should perhaps be from my village.
And so the real question is, what are we waiting for? What exactly are we waiting for? Nancy, tell me. You've been talking to all these guys here. What are they waiting for?
Perhaps what are we afraid of? Or what are they afraid of? Yeah. That should be the question. Perhaps the way the Nigerian system is right now, it favors just a few people. So would they rather have it work like this to the advantage of just a few people? That's the question we've been asking over the years. You see what is happening right now. The poor, there's a poverty dimension to it. There's an unemployment dimension to it. There's an inequality dimension to it. But is it also all? Because there are some countries that are also very poor. Would they go start looting food and start? So how would you assess all of this? Is it right for them to go as vandalize or open those warehouses?
It's totally wrong. It's totally wrong. And let me tell you how wrong it is. It's actually very unfair. Because guess what usually happens? These palliatives could actually have been for instance, the whole state. And just those who live around the palliative go and vandalize and deprive the rest of the other populace. And it is true that the leaders have done wrong by storing some of these. Some of them are actually expiring. But they could also have insisted, okay, we give you a week to distribute this. And whatever process you want to do that, things can be orderly, organized. And this is kind of, a spirit I wanted to see. That shows that there's a new youth out there that we can...
As we finalize this interview, do you think that the strategy by sharing those palliatives were wrong? Because the CACOVID came out to say, okay, the delay, explain the delay, which I shared earlier on at the beginning of the program. Governors Forum also denied. How do you think this would have been handled in terms of palliatives? What is also the role of the House of Rep members and the senators, because they also have constituencies? Okay, I think one of the senators said he wanted to share it for his birthday. So, is it your own? Is it you that bought it?
Unfortunately, there's never a perfect solution in things like this. But in hindsight, and actually not just hindsight, I was actually involved in the conversation around CACOVID, is private sector coalition. And so I know some of the people that donated,
yes.
And I've had to go back to them to ask, so what is the process? How is this? And I remember reaching out to the body, the committee that was actually distributing it. And I was insisting on Anambra State, for instance. How many trucks are coming? Who are you liaising with? How would that be distributed? What is the process? And we disagreed. They insisted they must go to the governor. I said, well, we can actually use data. We have, we have statistics from all the churches in Anambra State, from the Catholic to the Anglican to the other denominations, and even the traditional religion. We have the statistics, and they have database of people who are vulnerable, who are impacted, because we did a lot during the period. I used my foundation to impact on a lot. And in fact, within my community, we also contributed about 30 million.
But the question also is, I guess that they would have learned their lesson at this point. The question as we round up is, what do they also need? We have a rural population. Some people are milling rice.
The way I would want to say this is private sector initiative.
Private sector driven.
What about government people?
Okay.
That's what I should have, because they could have easily done this. Private sector is more efficient than government.
Okay.
You don't start something nicely and you get it, messed up eventually. But I hopefully, before you end, someone like me coming into government will bring that change in government. That will be like the efficiencies in the private sector.
Let's say you're campaigning right now on my show. You should pay. And as the campaign season started, let me just pretend I didn't hear that.
You didn't hear that.
So that I can interrogate you later. You come out fully, then we interrogate what you want to do. We ask you why and how. All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. I've been speaking with Valentine Ozigbo, the former past president and GCL at Transcorp Plc. I'll see you all tomorrow.